The empty seat. John hated traveling through space. It wasn't the stars or the silence that bothered him. It was the people, the crowd, the noise, the small talk. Today, he just wanted one thing: an empty seat beside him. He boarded the passenger ship late. Most seats were already taken. Aliens of all shapes and colors filled the rows, whispering in their own languages, some glowing faintly, others humming with quiet energy. John scanned the aisle with tired eyes. Only one seat was empty. It was next to him. He sat down, hoping no one else would notice it. The ship rumbled softly as it began its journey from the orbital station near Mars to a distant trade colony in Sector 9. John leaned his head back and closed his eyes. "Excuse me?" a soft voice said. John opened one eye. Standing there was an alien girl. Tall, slender, with skin like polished silver and long hair that shimmered like starlight. Her eyes were bright and curious, glowing with soft blue light. "May I sit here?" she asked, pointing to the seat. John hesitated. Most aliens didn't like sitting next to humans. They often moved away, whispering about human tempers or unpredictable behavior. But this one, she looked calm, almost gentle. "Sure," he said with a shrug. She sat beside him with a graceful movement, folding her hands neatly in her lap. John turned slightly, trying not to stare. "You are human, right?" she asked. John nodded. "Yeah, name's John." "I'm fiery," she said with a small smile. "This is my first time traveling on a human-made ship." "Hope you don't mind the lack of comfort," John said, half joking. "Comfort is not important," she replied. "Observation is." John raised an eyebrow. "Observation?" "Yes," she said. "I like learning about other species, especially humans. Your emotions are fascinating." John chuckled. "You mean we're emotional messes?" "No," she said seriously. "I mean your emotional energy is strong, intense, unlike any other race." John wasn't sure what to say. Most aliens avoided talking about emotions, but Leary looked at him with such interest, as if she was studying his face, watching every blink and breath. "May I ask you something?" she said. "Sure. Why do humans blink so often? And why does your heart beat faster when you lie?" John laughed. "Are you scanning me or something?" "No," she said, but her wristband glowed faintly. "I am only curious." "You ask weird questions," John muttered, trying to relax. A few minutes passed. The lights dimmed slightly, signaling rest time. Most passengers settled in. Then Larry leaned closer. "Is it true? Your heart is inside your chest?" John frowned. "Yes, where else would it be?" She tilted her head. "May I touch it?" John blinked. "What? Your chest?" she said gently. "Just to feel the heartbeat. I want to understand." John hesitated. This was getting strange. He had never had an alien ask something like that. But her eyes weren't cold or dangerous. She looked sincere, innocent. "Fine," he said slowly. "Just once." She reached out carefully, placing her hand over his chest. Her fingers were cool, almost weightless. Her wristband pulsed with a soft blue light. John felt something, like a small shock, but not painful. More like a tingle deep in his arm. He pulled back slightly. "What was that?" "Just a reading," she said. "Nothing harmful. Your heartbeat is strong." John looked at her wristband. It was glowing brighter now. "What's that thing do?" "It listens," she said. "To the heart, to the mind, to feelings." John shifted in his seat. He didn't like the sound of that. "Is that even allowed?" he asked. "Not usually," she said calmly. "But you agreed." John frowned. "I agreed to a touch, not mind reading." Leary didn't answer. Instead, she looked ahead, her face calm. John sat back, watching her from the corner of his eye. Something about her felt off, not dangerous, but mysterious, like she wasn't telling him everything. The ship continued through space, quiet and still, and John couldn't shake the strange feeling in his arm. The pulse. John couldn't sleep. tried closing his eyes. He even shifted positions and wrapped his coat tighter around his chest. But the strange warmth in his arm refused to fade. It wasn't pain. Not exactly. But it pulsed gently under his skin, as if something inside him had been switched on, and it had started right after Leary touched him. He looked at her. She was still sitting beside him, still and silent. Her glowing blue eyes closed. The wristband on her arm no longer blinked. It just pulsed softly, in perfect rhythm with John's heartbeat. He swallowed. Maybe it was just his imagination. But when the ship lights dimmed for night cycle, the wristband pulsed brighter, almost like it was reacting to the darkness. "Hey," he whispered, leaning closer. "Larry." She didn't open her eyes. Instead, she whispered back, "Your emotional frequency is louder now. It hums when you're afraid." John froze. "What did you do to me?" he asked. "I only touched your heart," she said calmly, "and now it is speaking to me." John felt a cold chill crawl up his back. He turned away, trying to ignore the buzzing feeling inside his mind. But the more he tried to forget it, the louder it got. It was like something inside him was echoing. When the ship passed through a weak radiation field, common in deep space, John expected the usual static hum in the walls. Instead, he heard whispers. Soft, strange, impossible whispers. They weren't in any language he knew. He looked around. No one else reacted. He glanced at Lyrie. Her eyes were still closed, but a faint smile had formed on her lips. "You hear it now?" she said, not opening her eyes. "What is it?" John asked, his voice sharp. "Your soul," she said. "And maybe someone else's." John stood up quickly. The pulse in his arm spiked like a quick electric wave. He grabbed the back of his seat to steady himself. "I'm going to the med bay," he muttered. "They won't find anything," Lyrie said. "Your body is fine, your spirit is just open now." "What the hell does that mean?" John snapped. But Lyrie only smiled again. He walked fast down the narrow corridor, heart pounding. Every few steps, he felt a small thump in his arm, like a second heartbeat. He reached the ship's medical station and scanned in. The medbot rolled forward. "State your concern. I feel strange, something in my arm. After an alien touched me." The bot scanned him. Vital signs stable, heart rate elevated, brain activity increased, no physical damage detected. "What about this?" John pulled back his sleeve. A faint glowing mark had appeared on his forearm, circular with small lines spreading out like roots. The bot paused. "Foreign biosymbol detected. Unknown type. Origin. Not in database." John stared at it. "Can you remove it?" "Not without risking nerve damage," the bot replied. He stepped back, breathing hard. The mark pulsed once, and he heard another whisper in his head. "You're chosen." He stumbled out of the med bay and leaned against the cold wall outside. Was he going crazy? Then a voice behind him spoke. "They've never responded to anyone this fast before." John turned. Lyrie was standing there. Her silver skin shimmered softly under the corridor lights. Her expression was serious now. No smile. No games. "What are you talking about?" John demanded. "The Watchers," she said. "The ones who sleep, between stars. They listen to feelings, not words. Your emotions, your grief, your hope. It called to them." "Called to who?" "What Watchers?" "They are ancient," she said. "Older than time. Some say they created the first minds. Not with tools, but with feelings, raw, powerful emotions. They can only be found when someone like you opens the gate." John shook his head. "This is insane." "Do you know why your kind scares the galaxy?" Leary asked, stepping closer. "It's not your weapons, not your speed. It's because you feel too deeply. Pain, joy, anger, love. You pour energy into every feeling. And that energy, it echoes across space." John backed away. "I didn't ask for this. No one ever does," Leary whispered. Suddenly, A deep hum filled the ship, not the usual engine sound. This one was deeper, older, like it came from the bones of the ship itself. Lights flickered. The passengers stirred in their seats. Then, the ship's central speaker buzzed to life. Attention. Unexpected energy surge detected in passenger sector 4G. Containment systems adjusting. John looked around. They were in sector 4G. He turned to Leary. "What did you do?" "I didn't do this," she said. "You did." A loud crack shook the walls. The floor trembled under their feet. John grabbed a handrail. Sparks flew from a nearby ceiling vent. Then, silence. Total silence. Until the whisper returned, stronger this time, inside his head. "We see you now." John clutched his arm. The glowing mark burned brighter. Leary looked at him with wide eyes. "You've been chosen, John. Now there's no going back. Questions he can't answer." John couldn't stop shaking. He had faced ship malfunctions before. Once, during a job on a mining rig near the belt, he even survived a pressure breach. But this wasn't normal. This wasn't something you fixed with tools. This was inside him. He sat alone in the dark waiting chamber near the cargo hold. The ship's systems were still recovering from the energy surge, though no one had figured out its true cause. Engineers were checking wires, systems, reactors, but John already knew. It had started with her touch. With Leary. He stared at the glowing mark on his arm. It was no longer just a shape. It was changing, shifting. It pulsed like it was alive. Sometimes it even reacted to his thoughts. When he felt anger, it turned orange. When fear took over, it glowed cold blue. And the whispers in his head were getting louder. They didn't sound like thoughts. They sounded like memories. Not his own. Not fully. Some were cries. Some were laughter. Some were voices in languages he didn't speak. And then sometimes they whispered his name. "John." He pressed his hands against his ears. It didn't help. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. He turned sharply, and there she was again. Leary. Her expression had changed, no longer calm, no longer curious. Now her eyes looked tired, almost sad. "You shouldn't be alone," she said softly. "You did this," John growled. "What did you put in me?" "It's not something I put," she replied. "It's something I unlocked." "What are they?" John asked. "What do they want?" Leary walked closer but stopped a few feet away. She sat across from him, keeping distance. "Your people have stories," she said. "Legends about gods, ghosts, and forces beyond understanding. The Watchers are not gods. They do not rule. They do not punish. But they are old, and they listen." John looked away. "I didn't want to be part of this." "That's not how it works," she said. "They don't ask permission, they wait for someone strong enough to carry their questions." "Questions?" John frowned. "What questions?" Leary touched her own wristband. It lit up again. Her voice dropped lower, more serious. "Do you know why they're called Watchers?" she asked. John shook his head slowly. "Because they never speak first," she whispered. "They only observe. But when they finally ask a question, it changes the one they ask it to." John didn't understand. "What question?" "The one you're already hearing," Leary said. John stared at her. "What are you talking about?" Leary reached out and gently tapped the mark on his arm. The moment she touched it, John gasped. His vision blurred. Then, flashes. A burning sky. A field of broken machines. A child crying under the stars. A man with John's face, screaming in rage. A woman's voice. "Please, don't forget me." John yanked his arm back, his breath ragged. "What was that?" "They're not memories," Leary said. "They're fragments. Parts of questions they're trying to ask through you." "Why me?" John shouted. "Why not someone smarter, someone stronger?" Because you feel, Leary said. They choose not with logic but with pain, love, guilt, hope, and you carry all of it. John stood up and walked in circles, trying to think. This isn't fair, he said. I was just traveling. I didn't want any of this. Sometimes, Leary said quietly, the universe chooses us when we're most unwilling. John turned to her. Then help me. Make it stop. Leary looked down. I can't stop it, but I can help you listen. Listen to what? To what they're really asking, she said, and why they need you to answer. John sat again, exhausted. So what now? I just wait for the next vision? Leary hesitated. There's a place, hidden deep inside this ship, a room the Watchers built long ago during the first wave of contact. Not many know it exists, but it's where their presence is the strongest. John looked at her. And you want me to go there? You have to, Leary said. They won't stop until you hear them fully, until you answer their question. John's heart pounded. What if I can't? Then they'll leave, she said softly, and take a part of you with them. They walked in silence through the lower levels of the ship. The lights here flickered. The walls were older, untouched by updates. This part of the ship wasn't on any passenger map. Leary guided him through narrow halls, strange metal doors, and finally, to a sealed chamber. She placed her bracelet against the lock. It clicked. The door slid open. The room was circular, silent. No lights, no screens, just walls covered in unknown symbols. In the center stood a tall black crystal, floating just a few inches above a metal pedestal. It pulsed slowly, matching the beat of John's heart. Go to it, Leary said. John stepped forward. As he placed his hand on the crystal, his mark flared and the whispers exploded into voices. Do you regret? Do you forgive? Would you choose again? The voices were endless, rising, crashing, breaking his thoughts into pieces. His knees hit the floor. He saw visions again. This time more real. His mother's final words, his brother's sacrifice, his own failure to say goodbye, all crashing at once. Answer us. What makes you human? John screamed. Then, silence. Pure. Total. And in that silence, he saw a face. Not alien. Not human. Something in between. It smiled and vanished. John fell backward, gasping for breath. Leary ran to him. What did they say? John looked at her. His eyes were glowing faintly now. They asked, he whispered. What makes us worth saving? Secrets from the archive. John didn't speak for hours. After the crystal room, he sat alone in the observation bay, staring out into the endless dark. The stars blinked, uncaring. The distant planets cold and silent. And somewhere beyond them the Watchers still listened. Inside him, the whispers had changed. They no longer asked. They waited. John touched the mark on his arm. It was no longer glowing, but it felt deeper, like it had grown roots inside his body. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of memories, some his own, others not. He didn't know where one ended and the other began anymore. Behind him, the doors opened. Leary stepped in quietly, carrying 2 small energy capsules. She placed one beside him. You haven't eaten, she said. John didn't answer. You heard something, she said, sitting across from him. More than words. He nodded slowly. They showed me something. Not just questions. A message. Leary leaned closer. What kind of message? John hesitated. It was a warning. She waited. They said, someone else is listening, John whispered. Someone dangerous. Leary's eyes darkened. Others have tried to use the Watchers before. They thought emotions were weapons, tools to control. But the Watchers don't serve anyone. They only respond to truth. So why me? John asked again. Why not a soldier, a scientist? Because you still feel everything, Leary said. And you hide nothing. John shook his head. I have nothing they want. You do, she said, but you won't understand until you see the archive. John blinked. What archive? She stood. Follow me. They walked deep into the engineering deck, past rusted pipes and flickering lights. John noticed there were no other passengers here. No crew. The air was colder, thicker. Finally, they reached a black door with no panel. Leary placed her palm on it. The wall shimmered and vanished. Behind it was a long tunnel lit by soft blue orbs. Alien symbols moved along the walls like water. This isn't part of the ship, John said. No, Leary replied. This is older, hidden during the early days of the Alliance. They buried it under years of code and metal. Only a few know. It exists. John stepped through. The tunnel led to a circular chamber. Inside were thousands of floating lights, each one showing a human, crying, laughing, fighting, dying, living. Some were children. Some old, all different. What is this place? John whispered. The archive, Leary said. A collection of human emotional imprints, stored over the last 2 centuries. Everything you've ever felt. We've seen it before. But yours is different. She waved her hand. A sphere floated forward. John's face appeared, but younger, standing in a burned-down home holding a photo. He stepped back. That's me. That's my house. After the fire. Your sadness was strong, Leary said. And your guilt. You blamed yourself. John felt the memory hit him again. Hard. Why are you watching us like this? He asked. We needed to understand, Leary said. No other race feels like humans do. Some call it chaos. Others call it power. But we believe it's something more. She moved to another sphere. John saw his brother, smiling, saluting before leaving for a mission he never returned from. John clenched his fists. Stop, I didn't give you permission to take this. You didn't have to, Leary said. The mark let us in. John turned toward her angry. You think we're just specimens? Stories to collect? No, Leary said. You're the map. John froze. What? Your emotions, especially the painful ones, are not just memories. They're coordinates, signals. When combined with others, they lead somewhere. John's eyes narrowed. Where? A lost colony, Leary said. A human settlement that vanished 100 years ago. It sent one last distress call, filled with screams, confusion, and silence. No ship ever found it. Until now. John looked around the glowing archive. You think my memories can find them? Your pain aligns with theirs, she said. The Watchers used you as a compass. They want you to go. John stepped back. I'm not a hero. No, Leary said. You're something more dangerous. You're honest. He didn't know what to say. Emotions twisted inside him. Fear, anger, sorrow. And behind it all, something else. Curiosity. He looked at her. Why are you helping me? Leary hesitated. Because I was like them once. Cold, curious, unfeeling. I joined this project to study, to record. But you changed something. John studied her face. Her silver skin still shimmered, but her eyes looked tired, human tired. You feel something now, he said. I think I do, she whispered. Suddenly the lights in the archive dimmed. A deep hum filled the chamber. John clutched his arm. The mark was glowing again. Bright red. They're calling again, Leary said. They're showing you the path. A glowing map formed above the archive. It showed a cluster of stars, a nebula, and then a dark space marked only as missing. John saw a blinking point, moving closer. What is that? He asked. Lyrie's eyes widened. A ship, she said. Someone else is following the signal. John stared at the path. We have to leave now, Lyrie said. Before they find it first. John nodded slowly. He finally understood. His memories weren't just scars. They were keys. And someone else wanted to steal them. The collector's purpose. The ship's engines rumbled louder than usual as John and Lyrie raced through the lower corridors. The glowing map they saw in the archive had burned itself into John's mind. He could still see it behind his eyes. Every star, every twist in space, every dead zone blinking with warning. Someone else was coming. Someone who knew what Lyrie had unlocked. They reached the private shuttle dock hidden beneath the engineering deck. Most passengers had no idea this place even existed. Lyrie moved fast, her fingers dancing across the controls of a small black ship docked in the shadows. Get in, she said quickly. We don't have much time. John hesitated. Who's following us? Lyrie paused. They were once collectors like me, but they turned into something worse. John narrowed his eyes. What do they want? She looked at him. You. The shuttle launched silently, slipping away from the main ship like a ghost. John sat in the back watching stars blur past as the shuttle entered deep space. Lyrie piloted with cold precision, but John could feel the tension in her hands. Start talking, he said. She nodded. I was part of a group called the Emotional Observance Council. We believed feelings were the strongest force in the universe, not weapons, not logic, not machines. But, John asked. Some disagreed, she said. They believed emotions should be used, not studied. They created machines that could extract feelings and twist them into energy. Pure, raw power. They called it the pulse. John's eyes widened. Like what's in my arm? Similar, she said, but yours wasn't made by them. It was made by the Watchers, naturally. Your emotional frequency synced with theirs. They saw something in you that couldn't be created artificially. John stared out the window. What happened to the others? They vanished into the void, Lyrie said. Some say they became monsters, empty, cold, still collecting feelings, but without purpose. John felt the mark on his arm pulse again, this time, not from fear, but from warning. They're close, he whispered. Yes, Lyrie said. They can smell your signal now. John clenched his fists. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Because I wasn't sure if you would. Survive the awakening, she said. But now, you're ready. John sat back, breathing hard. What happens if they catch me? He asked. They'll rip the map from your memory, Lyrie said. Not just the path, but the feelings themselves. You'll forget who you are, your pain, your joy, your brother, everything. John felt cold all over. So what do? He asked. We find the lost colony before they do, she said. It may be the only place left untouched by their machines. The only place where pure emotion still exists. What's so important about that colony? John asked. Lyrie looked at him, eyes full of something close to fear. Because they didn't just vanish, she said. They hid something there, something the Watchers gave them. What? John whispered. A living emotion, she said. A heart that thinks, a soul that feels. It's more than power. It's consciousness, and it's still alive. They flew through a silent region of space for hours. John stared at the screen, watching the blinking dot grow closer. Suddenly, the ship shuddered. Gravitational distortion, Lyrie said. Someone just opened a path behind us. John turned to the back display. A large ship emerged from the darkness, black as shadow, shaped like a dagger. No windows, no markings, just glowing red lights moving like veins across its surface. They're here, Lyrie said. The false collectors. Can we outrun them? John asked. Not for long, she said. But we don't need to. John looked confused. We're almost there, Lyrie said. But we can't land unless the gate accepts. You. Only someone with a true connection to the Watchers can open it. What gate? John asked. The heart gate, she replied. Hidden in the orbit of the lost colony. It responds to memory, to truth. John stared at the blinking red dot, closing in. And if it doesn't open? Then we both die, Leary said without hesitation. The lost colony finally appeared, a broken planet surrounded by glowing debris. Wrecked ships floated like bones, but between the wreckage something pulsed. A structure shaped like a flower of stone, floating in orbit. The gate. John's mark flared. It's calling, he said. Go, Leary said, opening the rear hatch. Stand in the beam. John walked to the back. A golden light shined from the gate and connected with the ship. As John stepped into the beam, memories surged forward. His first day at school. The day his brother left. The moment he almost gave up. The time he saved a stranger. The night he screamed into the sky asking why no one cared. And then, the voice of the watchers. You carry all? Do you still wish to feel? John stood tall. Yes, he said. Even the pain. Especially the pain. The gate opened. They flew through. Inside was calm, peaceful, no wreckage, just light. Trees. Buildings made of glass and stone. But there were no people. Where is everyone? John asked. Leary looked around, eyes wide. They're asleep, she said. Hidden. John walked to the center of the colony and placed his hand on a glowing stone. His mark synced with it, and then, from the ground, they rose. Hundreds of humans. Eyes open, but emotionless. Larry stepped forward. They were drained years ago. John looked at his hand. Can I give it back? Yes, she said. But it will take everything. John hesitated, then stepped forward. He placed both hands on the stone. Light exploded. His memories poured into them. His love, his pain, his fears. The people woke. Color returned to their faces. Tears fell. Laughter echoed. John collapsed. Leary caught him. His mark faded. He smiled weakly. They're alive. Leary nodded, tears in her glowing eyes. And so are you. The emotional map John woke slowly like a man pulled out of deep water. His body felt heavy, but his mind buzzed with light. Memories flooded him. His mother's laugh, his brother's final message, the time he helped a stranger and didn't ask for thanks. Even the pain felt clear, clean. He opened his eyes. Leary was sitting beside him watching. You gave them everything, she said softly. Are they all right? John asked. Yes, she nodded. They're feeling again. Crying, hugging. They remember who they are. John tried to sit up. Pain surged through his chest, but he forced himself to move. And the collectors? He asked. The ones chasing us? Leary looked out the glass wall beside them. Still coming. Outside, the sky of the lost colony was glowing. But not from sunlight. The atmosphere shimmered with emotional energy, rising from the people John had awakened. Their feelings weren't just restored. They were amplified, dancing across the land like threads of light. John stepped closer to the window. He saw groups forming. Families, lovers, friends. People who had been frozen in time were now alive, with joy, fear, confusion. But the joy wouldn't last long. They're going to try and take this, John whispered. They'll do worse, Leary said. They'll drain the feelings again, this time permanently. John clenched his jaw. We have to stop them. Leary nodded. There's one chance. She tapped her bracelet. A new map unfolded in the air between them. This isn't the old path, John said. No, Leary replied. This is something else. It came from your pulse, your mark. Your emotional path left traces, John. Deep ones, powerful ones. Every strong emotion you've ever had created a signal. Like footprints? John asked. More like seeds, she said. They grew. They became a map. John stared at the glowing lines. The map stretched far, far beyond this colony, even beyond human-known space. It pulsed like a living thing, and in its center was a dark zone labeled in Leary's language as Origin Echo. "What is that?" he asked. "The source," she said. "The first emotional imprint. The birthplace of the Watcher's signal." John took a deep breath. "And if we go there? We might find the only force powerful enough to stop the false collectors," she said. "But it's dangerous, unstable. Even I've never been that far." John looked back at the colony. They were building again, smiling, dreaming. "If we don't stop them," he said, "none of this will survive." Leary nodded. "Then we follow the map." Their shuttle launched from the colony's surface with full thrust. Behind them, a protective field of emotional energy formed, shaped by the people's combined feelings. For now it would hide the colony, but it wouldn't hold forever. John sat in the co-pilot seat. Leary handed him a thin silver band. "What's this?" he asked. "It's linked to your pulse," she said. "You can use it to sense the emotional echoes along the path. But be careful. It will also show you things. Truths. Regrets." John put it on. Immediately, his vision blurred, then snapped into place. The map was no longer a flat projection. It surrounded him in glowing lines, each one tied to a specific moment in his life. When he touched one, he felt it, like reliving it all over again: the time he said goodbye to his brother, the fight with his father, the night he almost gave up. Each memory was a path. "We don't just follow the map," John said quietly. "We become it." Leary looked at him, surprised. "You understand now?" John smiled weakly. "Not everything, but enough." They flew for hours through broken space, passing dead stations, shattered moons, and strange relics of forgotten wars. The closer they got to the Origin Echo, the more unstable the journey became. The shuttle's lights flickered. The gravity twisted. John felt his emotions shift without warning. Once he suddenly began to laugh, then cry, then scream. "The Echo is testing you," Leary warned. "Don't lose yourself." John gripped the seat, his mind spinning. Then, silence. They had reached the center. A massive sphere of light floated in space. It pulsed with every color. Inside it, shapes moved. Faces, hands, eyes, fragments of memories. "What is this place?" John whispered. "A living map," Leary said, "formed by every strong emotion ever felt by humans across galaxies. It's not just energy, it's memory, will, feeling." John felt tears rise in his eyes. The place hummed with sorrow, love, rage, forgiveness. "We have to find the core," Leary said. "The first signal." John nodded. He placed his hand on the shuttle's console. His pulse synced with the sphere. A beam of light connected to them. Suddenly, visions, millions of human lives, wars, peace, family, betrayal, heartbreak, hope, and one memory stood apart. A child, alone, floating in an escape pod, crying for someone, anyone. Her emotions were so powerful they bent the space around her. And something answered. "Is that?" John asked. "The first human the Watchers ever touched," Leary said. "Her sadness created the signal. She survived, but no one ever found her." John reached forward. "We're bringing it back," he said. As he connected to the core, something shifted. The red ship of the false collectors appeared, breaking. Through a rip in space, they had followed the signal. "They're trying to take control," Leary shouted. John's eyes glowed. Not this time. He poured everything into the link, his memories, his pain, his love. And then, he did something no one had ever done. He forgave. The core responded. A wave of emotional energy exploded outward. The red ship was hit. Its machines sparked. Its core collapsed. And the people inside, emptied of all stolen feelings, went still. The echo sealed. John collapsed. Leary caught him again. "You did it," she whispered. "No," John said with a weak smile. "We did." She sat beside him again. Space was quiet, again. After the emotional explosion that destroyed the false collector's ship, silence returned. Not the cold, empty silence John once hated, but something deeper. Peaceful. Like the universe itself had taken a breath. He floated unconscious inside the shuttle as it drifted slowly away from the origin echo. Glowing threads of emotional energy surrounded the ship, guiding it like invisible hands. Beside him, Lyrie sat watching his pulse on the console, her expression calm, but full of emotion. She had changed. Not just in the way she spoke or looked at John, but in her eyes. They no longer glowed like cold blue fire. They shimmered with warmth, softness, and something else she never thought she'd feel. Hope. John stirred. His eyes opened, slowly adjusting to the light. The first thing he saw was her. "You stayed," he whispered. "I always intended to," Lyrie said gently. John sat up with effort. His body ached, but the mark on his arm was quiet now. Not gone, but at peace. "Did it work?" he asked. Lyrie nodded. "The core sealed itself after you forgave. That emotion, it was stronger than any we've ever recorded. It wasn't just a shield, it was a key." John blinked. "A key to what?" "To the future," Lyrie said. "For humans. For the Watchers. For all of us." He looked out the window. The origin echo still floated in space, pulsing softly like a sleeping star. He smiled faintly. "I thought I was just a guy with bad luck and too many memories," John said. "You still are," Lyrie teased. "But now you're more." They laughed quietly. After a long silence, John asked, "What happens now?" Lyrie looked thoughtful. "We return to the colony. We help them rebuild. You'll need rest, and there are still things you must decide." "Like what?" he asked. "Whether you want to lead," she said. "Or just live." John leaned back. "I never wanted to lead. But people already see you as one," she said. "You showed them that feelings aren't weaknesses. They're weapons, and shields, and sometimes maps." John rubbed his arm. The mark was still visible, no longer glowing but etched like a tattoo made of memory. "What about the Watchers?" he asked. Lyrie stood and walked toward the control panel. "They're still watching," she said. "But for now, they're silent. You answered their question." "And what was it really?" John asked. Lyrie turned, her voice softer than ever. "They wanted to know if humans still believed in connection, in trust, in love. They wanted to know if we're still worth saving." John looked down. "What if I said no?" he asked. "You didn't," Lyrie replied. "You said yes without words. When you risked your memories, when you forgave, when you felt, even when it hurt." John nodded slowly. They returned to the colony 2 days later. The people were changed. They weren't just awake. They were alive. The children laughed louder. The elders wept openly. Strangers hugged in the streets. Artists painted on the walls with colors that glowed from raw feeling. And when John stepped out of the shuttle, they cheered. He raised a hand, embarrassed. Lyrie stood beside him, quiet but proud. A small girl ran forward and hugged his leg. "Thank you for giving me my dreams back," she whispered. John knelt and smiled. "They were always yours. I just reminded you." The weeks that followed were full of rebuilding. John helped design new homes powered by emotional pulse energy, clean, safe, and sustainable. Lyrie helped write new laws based on feeling as well as logic. A council was formed, half human, half alien, with John asked to lead. He refused, but agreed to be the heart of it, the one who reminded them what mattered when rules failed. Every night, John sat in the garden near the center of the colony, where the emotional core still pulsed softly underground. He stared at the stars, remembering everything. One evening, Lyrie approached quietly. "May I sit beside you?" she asked. John turned, smiling. "You already are." She sat, close this time. Not like the first time. full of curiosity. Now, she sat with belonging. They didn't speak for a while. Then John said, "You know, when you asked to sit beside me, I thought you were strange." Larry smirked. "I was. You still are. So are you." They both laughed. After a pause, John said, "Do you think the Watchers will ever call again?" Leary looked up at the sky. "Maybe. Maybe not. But if they do, I think they'll ask something new." "Like what?" "They might ask what we created together," she said. "Not just as humans or aliens, but as feelers, as builders of something new." John nodded. Then he asked the question that had been in his heart since the beginning. "Why did you really sit beside me that day?" Larry looked into his eyes. "Because I felt something strange when I saw you," she said. "A warmth. A pull. At first I thought it was scientific curiosity, but now I know it was something else." John waited. "It was the first time I felt safe," she whispered. John reached out and took her hand. "Same," he said. The colony flourished over time. More ships arrived, humans and aliens both, drawn by the energy of the place. But none were allowed to harvest it. It wasn't for power. It was for healing. People came broken. They left whole. John became known as the listener. He never gave speeches. He didn't hold power. But when people lost themselves, they came to him and found themselves again. And every time someone new sat beside him, they asked, "Can I sit here?" And John would smile and answer, "Yes, I want you to."